What up, all my fight fans? So we have some other breaking news. We got Nate Diaz talking about finally returning to the UFC, talking about finally returning to possibly the ring. He's pretty much talking about fighting again. You know, we know Nate Diaz, he hasn't been very active as of recent years. He's been very much doing his own thing, trying to build himself again, I guess, in a sense, like try to go out and do different competitions aside from doing just MMA fighting, UFC fighting, whatever you want to call it. But he is excuse me, he is talking about doing a Conor McGregor trilogy. I mean, I would hope so. That fight is going on almost 10 years in the making for a part three. You know, we've always said, oh, that fight can always happen, that fight can always happen. But at the end of the day, I mean, come on, what are we going to do? We're going to wait for that grudge match. You ever seen that movie Grudge Match with Sylvester Stallone and Robert De Niro? I mean, is that what the fight's going to be? Two old men going at it, settling the score? No, I want to see these guys in their prime. I want to see these guys when they're at their A game. I want to see these guys when they're like at the top of the level. That's when I really want to see them. But unfortunately, we did not get that. We got the first fight at UFC 196 is where Nate Diaz had to step in short notice because Rafael dos Anjos ended up pulling out from an injury when he was going to put up his lightweight strap against Conor McGregor. Now, the fight was interesting in the first round. In the second round, Nate Diaz was able to stop Conor McGregor, hurt him really, really bad, and choke him out, causing a really, really big, I would just say, star-making performance for Nate Diaz. You know, because that's what made him into a superstar. He was always a bit of a star, but this made him into that big, big superstar. You know, he was just all over, everywhere, talk shows and on TV. I mean, you name it, the guy was there. Then they finally did the second fight at UFC 202, and that was a fight of the year, 100%. Those guys left it all in the octagon. It was all standing up, everything from top to bottom. These guys just pretty much went to war. And it was a fun fight. I highly recommend, if you haven't seen those two fights, definitely recommend you guys watching those fights for sure. But Conor McGregor got the nod on there, and now we are waiting for part three. Will we ever get part three? I don't know, but we all know that Conor McGregor is doing his best to get back in the Nevada testing pool. He's always flirting and hinting at the fact that he wants to come back to fight in the octagon, in the cage. He almost was when he was going to face Michael Chandler last year, but that fight did not end up transpiring. He ended up hurting himself, and he ended up pulling out of the fight. And we all know what happened to Michael Chandler. Has been a bit of a downward skid himself. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with Conor McGregor. Maybe he's going to return. We all heard that he wants to return for that UFC White House event July 4th of next year. So maybe that will be the part three that we get with Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor. Maybe, I'm not sure, but it will definitely be fun. I'm not sure if these guys want to do any kind of press conferences or any kind of craziness at the White House. Dana White really has to be careful when regarding Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor, because we all know those guys are wild bunches. They're wild men, 100%. So there's that. Then you got Nate Diaz talking about boxing. Well, excuse me, before we get into boxing, he's also talking about Ilia Topuria. How Ilia Topuria is doing really, really good. How Ilia Topuria is by far one of the only other fighters outside of Conor McGregor he wants to fight. He said he is too small for him, but he still would like to fight him. Well, you know, at the end of the day, Nate Diaz is a lightweight fighter, and Ilia Topuria just so happens to be the lightweight champion of the world. So, hey, what not? Why not do it? Why not go and maybe if you were to get a win over Conor McGregor, and if Ilia Topuria is the champion still at that time, Nate Diaz could get another title shot. You never know. I'm sure he still would like to be champion of the world one day, but that's really his decision to make. Outside of that, he's talking about boxing where he sees Crawford and Canelo. I mean, you know, we saw him go toe-to-toe with Jake Paul, did not go his way, and we saw him go toe-to-toe with his arch rival, Jorge Masvidal, which, you know, it did go well. But we're not talking about those two guys. We're talking about high professional, by far legendaries, GOATs, whatever you want to call them, in Canelo and Terence Crawford. Those guys are beyond different level than what Nate Diaz would be used to doing. So I do not recommend him doing that whatsoever. You know, in a few weeks ago, Josh Thompson had recently reached out to Nate Diaz and called out Nate Diaz for a potential rematch where, if anybody remembers this, Josh Thompson was the first man to knock out Nate Diaz. It must have been 10 years, maybe even longer than that by this point, where he was able to do a head kick. These guys are talking about possibly bare knuckle fighting. That might be a good fight as well. I would love to see that. Or Nate Diaz go to Mike Perry and bare knuckle fight him. I'm sure they would offer him a lot of money to make that fight happen. You know, there's a lot of options for Nate Diaz because of his superstardom and his fighting ability and the way he was able to promote fights. He's always that fighter in the making to where we want to see him all the time. But of course, we all really want to see that Conor McGregor trilogy finally take place. We all want to see him go toe to toe with Conor McGregor and end the trilogy. And then we want to see him. I would love to see him box again, sure, but I really love to see him in the UFC again. I feel like there's so much more fun matchups he could be having. I feel like there's so much more he can definitely give to the UFC. You know, he is 40 years old, so he's not young. So I highly recommend if he does make a decision, it happens very, very soon because you don't got very many fighting years left for sure. And the wars that he's been in, yeah, definitely not. So guys, let me know in the comments, what do you think about Nate Diaz? Who do you think he should fight next? Should it be Conor McGregor? Should it be Ilia Topuria? Should it be either Canelo or Crawford? If anybody will take that fight with him, let me know in the comments, guys. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.